can you break down what you would say is your perfect motorcycle? And I'm not talking like dream bike, Panigale, or, you know, that kind of like I'm not just saying like the fastest, lightest, most expensive.
Okay.
I'm just saying, like, if you're going to go and buy a bike, the perfect bike, what would it start with? Let's start with the engine. It's got to be the engine. I'm talking like, it's a great road bike, power levels, engine configuration. What are you thinking?
Probably a 48 cylinder, high revving, loud, needs a backup motor to get it started in the first place. No, so for me, it's probably a twin. I mean, I've owned, I think the majority of my bikes have been 2-cylinder so far. It's quite well balanced. I have to say for myself, bit niche, but the Boxer Twin is probably the one I would be aiming towards.
Wow, I didn't see that coming.
For me, yeah, I know it's a little bit of even I didn't see that coming. I've surprised myself there. But no, genuinely, it's a bit of a split because it's on performance and the feeling of it. I suppose I do like a Boxer Twin. In terms of making your heart sing and the noise and stuff like that, it would probably be a V Twin instead for me. But either way, 2 cylinders. Yeah.
Power levels. What we talking? What's enough to have fun, but not unnecessary? AKA, that's a double negative, isn't it? What's the necessary?
We tend to dance around sort of 75 horsepower. I'd say is my kind of benchmark, right? 75 horsepower up to like 105-ish.
Do you have a preference on torque?
Yeah, not really first. If it's a twin, it's going to be pretty punchy anyway.
I have to ask you for some more specifics on what would make a perfect bike. So, what is your favorite seat height for a road bike?
That's real particular.
Yeah, I'm telling you.
I don't know if it's a deal breaker for me, but I think probably anything under 800 mil, I'm going to say 790 is kind of a sweet spot for me.
790? Wow.
Yeah, I think.
Seat height 790. What's the minimum amount of fuel it could carry for you to be content? Or like, what's a good amount of fuel? I mean, obviously, like the more fuel it carries, the better. But
yeah, well, not necessarily. Yes and no. I think I had a Moto Guzzi V7 which had like a 230 mile range on it.
They got like a
21
liters.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was, to be honest, that was possibly too much because you noticed the difference between it being full and being empty in terms of obviously how sort of fun it was to ride.
Yeah.
I think anything less than, I'm going to say 15 is kind of my benchmark. Having run out of fuel more than once, I don't enjoy it. So, and also, you know, when you're on the motorway and you pass a couple services or like the exits for it and you're like, oh, shit, this is me for the next 50 miles, basically. You want to know that you can at least get there. So 15 litres sounds about right to me.
Okay. Styling. What's your favourite genre?
A bit of a mix, but I like me a single round headlight on the front. That is kind of a must. I like quite a kind of muscular tank, and what I mean by that is it pops out of the kind of the seat, if you like. There's a decent kind of hump and arch to it. Like it's kind of stanced and ready to go. I'm not overly fond of kind of, let's say, Yamaha, Kawasaki, sort of straight line, straight edge. Suzuki as well is kind of an offender in my mind of the modern look of bikes. I prefer it to look a little bit retro.
What is what you would consider like too heavy?
I think sort of a lot of the bikes I've owned are like 190-ish. I think the Ducati Scrambler, it's hard to tell in it because they're always lying about their weights.
Yes.
So they're kind of, all of them will be like, it's curb weight. Oh, this is without any liquids in it. So yeah, like 175. I've owned a couple that've been like 170, 180.
When you're telling
like
people
200.
your weight, do you quote curb or dry?
Yeah, I quote absent of fluids. I'm just completely dry.
Well, you're 60% water, aren't we, humans?
Exactly. Yeah, so really, I'm only about 6 stone. So no, I go for, I've had a few bikes. So I've spanned between like 170-ish up to about 250, 260. I don't particularly enjoy a bike that's like 250 kilograms. So I'm going to say around 200. If I can get less, then I would.
Woo. Not bad, not bad. There's a purpose to this, by the way. Probably people listening might be thinking, where are you going with this? But there is a purpose. What tech features are now non-negotiable for you? Or is it the simpler the better?
Tech features. If I was buying a new bike, if someone is designing Tim's perfect bike, then I'm going to say cruise control actually, and it's a little bit prissy, but I do want that as a non-negotiable. Especially if I'm getting a new bike, I want cruise control on there. Because if I'm doing distance, like when you're sat on the motorway, it's just boring as hell. And I think that's, ABS and switchable ABS, switchable traction control. Usually, if I can get it, I will absolutely take it.
And then lastly, what would you say is an acceptable price point for a bike that hit all these, keeping in mind you're buying it new, hits all these markers for you?
I'm trying to guess the market, but I haven't bought, and firstly, I've never bought an actual brand spanking new bike, but yeah, I'm thinking they're around sort of 8-9 for this kind of middleweight. My
reason for delving into this is because I've got all the full specs now of the new Svartpilen 801. Looking at it, I don't think it looks like massively exceptional in any one area. It's not going to be the one that gets all the headlines for like crazy new tech features or new engine design with some means of generating astronomical power figures. There's nothing phenomenal about it. And even the styling, just a little bit of an evolution of the 701 or the 401 they just updated. But I actually think it hits a lot of these points.
So does this meet your perfect bike, or is this way off the mark for what you like?
Well, my perfect bike is the Svartpilen 801 I just described. And it's pretty close on these. And yeah, what you've defined there is pretty similar. I'd go for a twin probably. I really like a V-twin, but this is a parallel twin, of course, the Svartpilen, and it's got the something like a 435-degree crank or something like that. It gives you 75-degree V-twin vibes, like the Super Duke. Peak power, 105. You said 75.
Nice.
Yeah. Punchy.
Well, I said it has to be at least 75, but I was like up to 100-ish. Yeah. Between that sort of margin, for sure.
They, let's say, they damped the power a little bit in the 790 Duke that it's based upon, so they could limit it down to A2. But this bike, they just don't seem to care about A2. I guess because they got the 401 Svartpilen, it's already ready to go for that market. So it gets 105. Seat height, 820, which I would argue, for me, is far preferable. But, personal taste. It's just 790 mil. I find like quite small. Like we're out riding the CB500 the other day. Isn't that 795? It's quite a titchy bike.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. Oh,
close
you do?
To the ground.
Okay.
You feel the speed. Feel the rush of speed. No, I might have been off on that one, to be honest. I think like 800, for me, like 830 is what I would consider tall. And it's also dependent on kind of the seat. And if we're talking about this one, then that puts me in mind of the Vitpilen 701, which to me feels kind of tall. You kind of like you sort of sat on that tall seat that you get out for family occasions when you're having a meal around the table and you've run out of chairs. You've got the stool and you're sort of dangling your legs off it. Not particularly feeling comfortable. It's also got about as much cushioning in it as well. So the 701's never been what I would consider a comfortable bike. So I'd prefer it to be just a smidge lower.
Yeah, I can't remember what it is. Shall we have a quick look? 830. So yeah, this is 820. I think that makes it
okay.
What I was thinking when I looked at the specs is like some of these retro bikes can be a little bit too low for some reason. I don't know if they gear them towards newer riders who might be taken by the looks and that sort of thing. But yeah, sometimes they don't feel like proper bikes. Whereas 820, right in the sweet spot, not too tall, not too short. So it's another big tick for me.
Goldilocks zone, nice. Yeah.
14-litre fuel tank, so a litre short of your dream situation. But it's actually not too bad on fuel as well, that engine, despite the fact that it's loads of fun. Styling, you said single headlight, tick. Muscular tank, I think it ticks that box. It is under 200 kilos. I think it's 195. It's based upon, like I say, the 790 Duke, but it's 7 kilograms heavier than the Duke. I think that's because it's got a bit more body work and it's meant to look a bit more scramblery. I'm not sure if ABS and traction control are switchable. They probably are, but you might have to pay for the dynamic pack, which is on top.
I'd say KTM and Husqvarna do tend to throw that in as like, what do they call it? Like Supermoto.
It does have Supermoto ABS as standard, which switches off the rear so you can stamp on the brake pedal. It does also have the option of cruise control, although again, you need to pay for the dynamic pack. Sorry. And I don't think you can buy it separately. You have to buy it as part of the pack. And if my memory serves me correctly on the KTMs, it's 500, 600, 700 quid, something like that. Oh, I don't know. I have to double check that. But it's not £100, let's say, for the dynamic pack.
Sure.
So that's a bit frustrating. Price-wise, they say it's going to be $10,499. Available from June this year. Let's have a little look. You haven't even seen it yet, have you? Let me share my screen and show you a couple of pictures.
I've seen a couple because I think they've been doing some press stuff on it, and they took it out with snow tires on it, didn't they? And just went out blatting around some frozen landscape, which I thought looked very cool. I mean, that was the aim, is to make it look really cool.
Yeah, I think it's to try and sell the kind of flat track vibe.
Yeah.
Looking at it, now you've seen the pics.
Yeah.
Worth $10,499, thinking about the specs as well.
Is this kind of like relative to the rest of the market? It sounds like it might be, right? It's not overpriced compared to its rival.
Well, it's £2,500 more than a 790 Duke, so you're getting a lot of the same bike for a lot less money.
Yeah, that is punchy.
But then the looks on the 790 Duke are just not great for me.
Bad enough that it's worth $2,000.
And you get 10 more horsepower. For this one?
Yeah, that's true. That is true. Yeah. See, the thing is, because obviously they've got the press materials, right? And they've got it all Husqvarna sticker bombed.
Yeah.
And you can get an idea of the silhouette, but weirdly, it does actually do quite a good job of masking the overall design. So you can see those photos and you're like, I don't know whether I like this or not.
Yeah.
It's too loud. So with this, you can actually see the sort of the shadows around that hunched kind of tank. And it's got those almost like sort of fins that come out on the side of it. And it's got that satin finish to it. And yeah, there is no question the Husqvarna design team are brilliant at what they do. It is a very pretty bike. Proportions are all good, which is a really hard thing to get. You know, when you see sort of like Chinese imitations of certain bikes?
Yeah, slightly off.
You can tell what the influence is, and they're just off. Yeah, exactly. It's like you're drawing it from memory. You're like, well, it kind of looked like this. But this one, there is something that's millimeter perfect in terms of the design of it. I mean, just the fact that the exhaust on the back exactly meets the line of the tail section.
Yes.
And then, you know, the headlight is the right kind of height for that tank, where the tank leads you into the headlight. And a tiny little fly screen on the front. There's no question that is one of the prettiest bikes this year.
I think it's going to be banging. Obviously, we got a reserve judgment until we ride it, but you know kind of what you get in. With it being so heavily based upon the Duke. It's interesting they've really moved away from the sort of scrambler thing and more towards flat track. Like you don't get spoke wheels anymore. You know, these are much more flat track style tires. I just think it looks really, really good. Yeah. We're getting one for a few months as well, a semi-long termer, but it'll be later this year because they're not out until June. Not too far, 3 months to wait. But yeah, I think for me, given just how good it looks in almost every area, good looking, lightweight, 100 horsepower, torquey twin, got all the bells and whistles, but you don't have to pay for them all if you don't want them.
Yeah. Can
get cruise control. WP suspension's great. Assume the Husky brakes are going to be fine because they're produced by J-Dwan.
Yeah.
820mm seat height. I know, I was saying that earlier. You thought it was too specific, but I think that's right in the sweet spot.
Yeah, probably. I want to sit on this thing, though. I do think, looking at that seat and knowing what their seats are generally like, I think that one is pile-inducing. Possibly. Maybe that's a little too harsh. Maybe it's more comfortable than the previous ones I've tried. What I will say, though, same sort of building on your kind of excitement with this one, is that I've ridden the 790 Duke, love that bike. There's no way this can't be a great performer because it's the same sort of platform and it looks way better. So yeah, I'm very excited to ride that as well.